Let's go to Bowmanville-Oshawa North. This is, if you have a look here, this is Jamil Jivani projected elected. This is a seat that the Conservatives have held by increasing numbers over the last few years. You know, it's interesting. The shorthand when people talk about Jamil Jivani is that he is very good friends with the U.S. Vice President JD Vance. You know, would that make a difference for him, for better or for worse, at the polls? Not so far. He's done extremely well. He is headed back to Ottawa. And let's find out what this night is like for him, because I believe David Common is right there in Bowmanville-Oshawa North. And I think you do have a guest, David.
We do indeed, Adrienne. And yes, this is, there have been electoral boundary changes for this election, and this riding certainly among them. But much of it was former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole's riding. In the by-election following his resignation, it was Jamil Jivani who won that. And Jamil Jivani winning again tonight. Congratulations,
first of all. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a great team here in Bowmanville-Oshawa North. Very excited and happy to bring home a victory.
I do want to ask you, Mr. Jivani, because you've just spoken to your supporters, a large group that's here at the pub here in Bowmanville, North Oshawa, and you said to them, among other things, that Doug Ford was a problem for you in this campaign. You said that he sabotaged the Conservative campaign. That's your words. You said he was a hype man for the Liberals. Take me through how you see that.
Yeah, well, look, Doug Ford just went through an election. I have differences of opinion with him. I don't like how he's managed healthcare or education, but out of respect, we didn't say anything. Federal party, we didn't get in his way. When it was our turn to run an election, he couldn't stay out of our business, always getting his criticisms and all his opinions out, distracting our campaign, trying to make it about him, trying to position himself as some kind of political genius that we needed to be taking cues from.
Was it him specifically? Was it his campaign manager, Corey, tonight? Do you see Doug Ford as a problem for the federal party in the outcome of this race?
I see Doug Ford as a problem for Ontario and for Canada. I think he's not doing a great job in running this province, and now he's trying to exercise his influence over other levels of government, and it's not like this guy is doing anything particularly well. I mean,
you did used to work for him.
I did. I'm speaking from experience. I tried to fix problems in this province, and he kept getting in his way and all his goons around him all the time. They wouldn't make anything better, and now we're seeing him because this guy's a political genius because he beat Bonnie Crombie and Stephen Del Duca, and now we got to sit around getting advice from him? No. He has taken the provincial Conservative Party and turned it into something hollow, unprincipled, something that doesn't solve problems. He's glad-handing with Chrystia Freeland, having coffees and lattes with Mark Carney, and I'm sitting here saying we need to be fighting for change and something new and something different, not being a hype man to the Liberal Party.
Some would argue that the challenge within the federal Conservative movement is that there are these divisions, divisions that in some ways you're outlining tonight, and that it is the thing that stops or prevents, holds back the federal party from the majority government that it seeks. Do you see that as a possible outcome to some of the fractions and frictions that exist within the federal party?
There is a lot of unity from Conservatives across the board. Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney, James Moore, all sorts of people who've been part of our movement for a long time, united behind Pierre. They're opportunists like Doug Ford. And I think it's not about ideology or differences of beliefs. It is about some people believing our purpose as Conservatives is to be an alternative to what the Liberals offer. And then there are people like Doug Ford who are opportunists. And I reject that outright.
Do you have any leadership ambitions?
Look, we have a leader of our party right now. We're still waiting in for the final seat counts. I don't know what tomorrow holds. My focus, though, is on all the young people, all the parents, the moms, the dads who came to us and trusted us to offer an alternative, a brighter future. We're going to see that through. We're going to keep fighting. And when the next federal election comes around, Conservatives will earn the trust of more voters, and we will bring home a victory nationally.
My last question to you looks at the results. As we speak here right now, 160 for the Liberals, 151 for your Conservatives. This is a lot closer of a race than some had expected. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, I think a lot of people misunderstood just the frustration that Canadians felt. All these polls that showed Conservatives far below the Liberals, I think we're missing how many young people saw our party as the party of dreamers and hustlers and strivers and builders. That is our identity for young people, and we are going to continue offering them that vision for Canada. As we continue to see progress made, earning more trust, growing our party, getting more union support, police support, young families, working class families, I think we will see this identity that Pierre Poilievre has helped develop crystallize further, and our party will only go up from here.
Jamil Jivani, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Adrian, I will turn back to you from Jamil Jivani's victory party here in Bowmanville-Oshawa North.
If only he would speak his mind, David. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's so vague about his views. Congratulations to him. If Doug Ford is listening, maybe give us a call. He might have a few things to say. That was very interesting, Rosie.
It was. I mean, there was an interview that Politico did with Doug Ford that was published today. That was perhaps inspired what Jamil Jivani said there. It was very frank and aggressive about what the federal Conservatives are doing. Let's bring in the panel and get their response and reaction to that. I mean, if you want a confirmation that there is a problem, a major rift between Ford Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre Conservatives, Jamil Jivani just showed you that.
It's like it was two different interviews. Like the last part of it about the strivers and the go get them, et cetera.
The hustlers.
That's the kind of, but that's a kind of a positive vision of the party. Sure. The first part, when he was on the tirade about Ford, shows you part of the problem. I mean, it reflects the duality of the result here. They did a lot better than people were expecting mid-campaign. That's right. So they've escaped with the skin of their teeth. But they blew a 25% lead, and I think you saw part of the reason why there. The failure to build bridges even within their own movement.
Yes.
And this kind of scabrous negativity. I mean, you know, people talk about, oh, well, it's only because the NDP vote collapsed. A big part of the reason the NDP vote collapsed was Pierre Poilievre's leadership and the specter that he presented to, at least to progressive voters. Yeah. When conservative leaders are scary, NDP voters are more likely to listen to the Liberal siren call of you have to vote with us.
Yeah, and the favorability for Pierre Poilievre never improved. In fact, I probably did the opposite through the polls, Chantal.
But if you're going to run possibly a fragile government, it's good news to hear this interview because you know the Premier of Ontario will continue to be working with you as the Liberal Prime Minister of Canada.
That's right.
And in the end, bottom line, once we get through this who knows when thing, the next order of business is going to have to be dealing with what's happening south of the border.
That's right.
And the one relationship that will really matter is that of the Premier of Ontario with the Premier of Canada in those circumstances.
Yes, yeah.
Having listened to that, you kind of feel relieved that these are not the people who will be knocking at Premier Ford's door.
Well, I mean, it does show that if it was a Pierre Poilievre Prime Minister with that kind of animosity between the biggest province in the country, I don't know how that would have worked to take on Donald Trump. I don't know. Maybe they would have been able to patch things up if they were going to form government. But
I mean, when there is no need to say things like this tonight.
And you
and
wonder
go
whether
on rants.
You wonder whether he had authorization for this. I mean, Pierre Poilievre, as I say, they escaped with skin of teeth, but he should be a chastened leader at this point. He threw away a 25% lead, and it's because of things like that. And if he doesn't learn from this experience, then, you know, he's going to reap all he sows.
He still, though, I mean, if these numbers hold, the last vote was at 128. He's 150. He may hold the Liberals to a minority. I mean, that will protect his leadership potentially, right? Yeah.
The first question, will he be in the House of Commons?
Yes.
Because I keep looking at those results in Carleton, and I'm waiting for them to find the stack of votes that puts him back on top. Yeah. There are still lots of polls in Carleton that have not been counted.
But he has not led that race yet.
Oh, he is significantly behind. Yeah. It's not a close race at this point.
Yeah. Jason Kenney, we snuck Jason Kenney in there because I also heard Jamil Jivani say your name as someone who is a conservative that he likes and points to as someone who is able to bring people together. What did you make of that? And there is obviously a problem here between Ford Conservatives and Poilievre Conservatives, and I don't know if it matters, but there's some deep animosity.
Well, there are certainly some personal differences, and to state the obvious, I have a firm grasp of the obvious. By which I mean, I think this is actually much more personal than it is ideological or factional.
Okay.
Every party has certain issue factions and personality factions. In this case, there seem to be two or three personalities that have really ramped up what I think is an unnecessary conflict that simply needs to get resolved.
Yeah.
And, I know Jamil, for whom I have enormous regard. He's a incredibly talented a guy with an amazing story.
Yes.
He has a particular particular series of grievances. And I just, none of this should have been in the public domain. Let's put it that way.
No, for sure.
And I agree there should have been earlier efforts to engage get those relationships well settled much earlier. But it's not like there's a huge rift. Most of the people going door to door for federal Conservative candidates in the last 5 weeks were going door to door for Doug Ford's candidates a few weeks before that. And you know what? The Ontario PC critique has been that Poilievre's team doesn't know how to win in Ontario. He's right now over 45% of the popular vote. Mr. Ford won 43% of the popular vote earlier this year. So the federal Conservative campaign is getting a better result, a larger total raw vote count, and a higher share of the popular vote.
Yeah.
That's nothing to sneeze at. And I think so a little bit of everybody has to put some water in their wine and put the best interests of the country first.
Yeah.
And maybe the common interests of partisan Conservatives somewhere in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Pierre Poilievre had called Doug Ford right from the get-go, the same way that Mark Carney did, he went and had breakfast with him, it probably would have helped. Whether it matters at this stage, I don't know.
Well, remember, it's not just Poilievre versus Ford. It's Poilievre versus Tim Houston in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there were a series of candidates who looked like they could be perfectly acceptable and presentable candidates for the party who just didn't fit in with the Poilievre clique.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike DeJong in BC, why was he not allowed to be a candidate? So, it's one thing, you can have a tent that's too broad and you lose all definition and you don't stand for anything, but you can have a tent that's too narrow and you just wind up defeating yourself.
Okay, I want to go to Conservative Party headquarters, if we can. Maybe, possibly.
Much, Anne-Marie. Lots of things to keep our eyes on.
That's just a look inside the room where, that's what it looks like when you have not won an election and you're waiting to see more. Let's go to Kate McKenna, who's, I imagine, been talking to people and getting a sense of how people are feeling in that room tonight. Kate, yes, they haven't won, but it does look like they have improved over what they got in the last vote. But tell me what people are telling you.
Well, what your guest just mentioned about the federal Conservatives doing better in Ontario than the provincial Conservatives did, that's something that the campaign has been going around talking about. That's something that is very much being discussed in this room. And yes, they are losing. They're aware that they're losing. However, they're happy. Well, I wouldn't say they're happy, but they're encouraged by their gains that they've made. They're encouraged by the amount of popular vote that they're getting. But of course, one thing that's hanging in this room is that Pierre Poilievre has not won his seat yet. In fact, he appears to be trailing in his seat. We are hearing that he is set to talk in a few minutes, but they did play the Jamil Jivani interview here at the same time. Obviously, it was on the CBC broadcast, and there was a lot of applause in the room for the things that he was saying. There was a lot of hollering and cheers for the people in this room who feel that Doug Ford's interventions in this campaign were not helpful, and they did not advance the Conservative cause in this very competitive election. So this ongoing rift appears to still be taking place within this party, and we'll be watching to see how it manifests over the next few days.
Okay, Kate McKenna, thank you so much for that.